All right, greetings. What's going on, everyone? This is Chris Dixon, and I am back with another video. Hope you all are doing good and well. In this particular video, I will be talking about the concept of tunnel vision and how having tunnel vision can be very beneficial as you pursue your goals, dreams, and overall purpose. All right. Oftentimes, when people hear the phrase tunnel vision, a lot of the times people tend to interpret it as having limited perception and being so fixated on a particular goal or desire and whatnot, and completely missing important detail factors, okay, as they pursue that particular goal or desire and things of that nature. And to a degree, that is true, all right. But on the other side of the coin, it can also have a lot of positive meaning to it, all right. Being fixated on, your goals, dreams, and your purpose, okay. Tunnel vision, to me, is pretty much, seeing the light at the tunnel, okay, or at the end of the tunnel. More than likely, you've heard that particular concept before. Just pretty much seeing, the light at the end of the tunnel. If you've been through a lot, sometimes you can get down to yourself. You start to, lack faith in, your dreams, pursuing your dreams, your purpose, and things of that nature. And you tend to, not see, that particular, light, that's waiting for you, as you continue to, press forward, right? One thing about, pursuing your dreams, goals, and purpose is you're going to be faced with a lot of, adversity. You're going to have people that's not going to be in support on what you want to do, and what you want to pursue for yourself. So for an example, we've all stumbled across or had these people in our life at one point. When you share with them, things that you want to pursue, that you've been thinking about, whether that be a personal project or whether it be starting a new career field, you share with them, the things that you want to do. And soon as you share it with them, they automatically start telling you things, to pretty much keep you from doing it. They'll tell you or give you all the reasons on why it wouldn't work and why you shouldn't pursue it, just because they don't want to see you pursue your goals. They may be jealous or envious, and they don't want you to outshine them. So they'll automatically fill your head up with doubt, right? So that's why I say it's very important to, keep your focus, fixated on your purpose, right? Not saying be closed-minded, always be open-minded to, new information, new knowledge, new wisdom, and understanding of things. But use your discernment, when you're engaging with people. Be wary of who you share your goals, dreams, and desires with, so to speak. Because you just can't, you can't share with everybody. So make sure you have people um, that you trust, that you're sharing your information with, and that they'll stand in support of you. You know what I'm saying? Um, don't be so quick to, tell everything that you got going on, you know what I'm saying, that you want to pursue for yourself, right? Because it's a lot of people out here that don't want to see you shine. And when they see their opportunity, they will step in your way and do the best they can to hold you back from pursuing, success. And that's where the concept of, having tunnel vision comes into play when you become very fixated, on your goals, dreams, um, and purpose. And you're not going to allow anyone to come in and, you know, doubt or try to fill you up with doubts on why you shouldn't pursue, the things that you want to do. All right. So that's pretty much a benefit to tapping into the concept of tunnel vision. All right. Just keeping your focus, and even if you do encounter people like that, you're still fixated and focused on what you want to do. You're working hard towards it. You're just not letting people, get in your way to stop you, right? Because technically speaking, the only one that can stop you is yourself, all right? It's pretty much, you versus you, right? So only you can stop you from pursuing the things that you want to do for yourself. So having, that very intense focus, being very fixated on what you want to do is very important, all right? Because the steps that you need to take to get there, the routes that you need to take, the things that you need to study, to pursue, that particular dream, desire, or purpose, right? And, when you know your purpose, can nobody, um, throw you off your square, all right? So that's pretty much just what I wanted to talk about very briefly. It's just something that I've been thinking about, recently, you know, um, as I'm walking my path and, I'm dealing with, my challenges and, obstacles, as I press forward, I'm learning myself, you know, how to be focused and, fixated on, what I came here to do, you know, and, just being patient with myself, you know, and learning how to, keep the faith, because that's one thing that's very challenging for a lot of people, like I said, um, it gets to a point sometimes where you come across people and they may try to throw you off with doubt, um, and even, with yourself, you may start to, doubt if you can accomplish something or not. So that tends to start to affect your ability to have faith in what it is you're doing. So as long as you keep your vision, fixated on that particular light at the end of the tunnel, you know, things will gradually, start to get better over time, because, we all got challenges, um, we all go through things that pretty much test us in a multitude of ways. And sometimes we start to doubt ourselves, right? But that's where, having that locked in, vision comes into play. Not necessarily saying that you are shutting everybody off and, you know, what insight that they have to offer, because one thing about knowledge is that it's endless and nobody knows everything, you know, under no circumstance. So, yes, continue to be open minded, you know, yes, continue to um, pursue, you know, your studies and gaining insights, from multiple um, perspectives, as you study. But always know, what it is that you came here to do, and don't lose sight on it. If it's something that you know that you're good at and you will be successful at, keep that vision, focused, and that light at the end of the tunnel, which is your purpose. Don't lose sight on it, right? So that's pretty much all I wanted to touch base on as it pertains to the concept of having tunnel vision, right? Uh, so just keep those things in mind, as you, pursue, your goals, your dreams, your visions, purpose, so forth and so forth. And just keep that, keep that focus, the best you can. All right. That's all that I have for this particular video and discussion. I hope that you all enjoyed it, and I will talk to you all on the next one. Peace.